Hi, I'm Joshua Hayward from dynamicmindcreativeheart.com, and thanks for joining me in this video. Another installation of Straight from the Source. This is an astrological update of our times. In my last video, I discussed the first of three eclipses, and yes, we are getting three eclipses this time. The last one was a lunar eclipse with the moon in Scorpio and sun, of course, in Taurus. You might want to go back and view that video to complete what I'm going to have to say in this one. One thing I perhaps neglected to say is that the work that was opening up among the other things that I mentioned was that I want to say now is to do some work around addiction and addictive patterns, and that could have to do with drugs and alcohol. It could have to do with relationships. It could have to do with anything, addictive patterns to which can sabotage you in what you want to create in your life, because we're moving into these times now where co-creative focus is so important, and addictive patterns, and they can really pull you back into the past and out of the now, and so you can't get into the now, and what you're going to create in the future is going to be more of the same. So that with the Scorpio moon and etc., from the last one, that would be part of the work. But to continue on with this, these next two eclipses and some information around that. This next eclipse is a solar eclipse, and the sun and the moon are both in the sign of Taurus. So it's going back to the Taurus Scorpio polarity, because the north node of the moon is still in Scorpio, and the sun and the moon, Mercury, Venus, and Mars are all in the sign of Taurus. All of them except Venus lining right up really close on the south node of the moon, which is sort of a thing that where we're at of resolving some issues, taking a look at, and then moving towards the transformation of Scorpio with the north node of the moon. So it's sort of like revisiting that last eclipse in a way, and it's saying, what have you decided to release from the last type of the last eclipse from the moon in Scorpio? Now with everything in Taurus, it's coming into some sort of resolution of what you want to hold on to and what your values are. So it's a revisitation of values and important areas of havingness and holding. So are we deciding what we want to have? But when you get the Mars conjunction with Mercury and then the moon and the sun, it brings in the assertive and aggressive type of energy. And what have we been fighting against? What have we been fighting for? Are we fighting too much, or are we allowing the universe to really rearrange itself to what we're truly choosing in our lives? So it's really, right now we're looking at seeing what's inappropriate and what's too aggressive, and how much do we need to put with violence, and that could be just with violent thinking. And we can really be cruel to ourselves as well as others without even knowing that's what we're doing. So it's really we're looking at appropriate thought and communication energy with the right amount of assertiveness would be the appropriate thing here. And now we're looking for that inner alignment, releasing aggression and transforming aggression into positive forward movement. So that's what the second eclipse is about. And this is this is in the evening of the 9th. And today, as I'm recording this, this is the 8th of May. So, in the sign of Taurus. All right, so these are important things to consider. But then now you want to look at the third eclipse, which is another lunar eclipse, and the whole thing shifts, and it's gotten away from the north node, south node polarity of where we're going. Um, that's not as emphasized, but it's what we're saying, what we're thinking, and how we're communicating, and how we're listening, and the quality of that energy of writing and publishing and that sort of thing. The awareness and consciousness through connections with others. That is what's really being emphasized here. And I'm going to tell you a little tale in a moment about what's been going on with me, about how synchronicity is a big part of consciousness and growing through. It's sort of learning how to listen to what the universe is telling us. So I really think that that has a major part of what's coming up as we move to I think it's the 24th of this month. Keeping in mind that the next, which would be the third square between Uranus and Pluto, of 7 squares. And so we're looking at a huge time with these 3 eclipses connecting into that third exact square, which is certainly a significant demarcation of the astrological configuration of these 2 planets, which really is going to define this century of where we're going with this century together and by ourselves, etc. So communication, consciousness, emphasis on writing and speaking, and let's, when we get to that particular eclipse, it's really about what we've learned in the last 3 weeks. Right now, it's been about 2 weeks. There's a lot to have been learned so far about really looking at these issues around power and finance and money and addiction and holding and transforming and releasing and letting go and stuff like that. Because if we're moving into this completely transformed awareness of enlightenment, there's a lot to let go. And so we're going to be letting go of ideas and beliefs and things like that as we look at this. We're looking at the sun now in this next, it's another lunar eclipse, and I believe it's late in the evening on the 24th of May. When we look at that, it's going to be the sun's in Gemini and the moon is in Sagittarius, which really has to do with thinking, and then Sagittarius would be perceiving, Gemini, Sagittarius, also writing, communicating, publishing. All right, so you're looking at media and stuff like that. Well, see, what you've got now is a Jupiter, Venus, and Mercury conjunction in the sign of, not really aligned exactly with the other 2 planets of the sun and the moon, a little bit later on, and so it's not a direct conjunction with the sun being in Gemini, but later on in Gemini, and nonetheless important, very important, because these planets are on a square to the wounded healer in Chiron, which is Chiron in the sign of Pisces, Pisces ruling beliefs. So we're looking at this alignment of very artistic, very intelligent, and very able to bring in energy of inspiration into communication, and to think clearly, and to think and express ourselves artistically with a certain amount of clarity that could be really very clear, as a matter of fact. All right, so looking at that, but yet at a challenge to how we've sort of felt about things in the past and what we've learned in the past, with the moon being in Sagittarius, and then squaring the wounded healer from the sign of Pisces, which would be, we were getting healing and consciousness around releasing beliefs, examining and releasing those beliefs at this time when we're letting go and realigning our creative focus of where we want to go. And so I really see this second lunar eclipse as extremely important in terms of that kind of stuff. What I've been learning in about, I've been really looking directly into a lot of my limiting beliefs. I've been looking directly into my core issues. One thing I want to just talk to you about is this, what I just kind of came to, and I think it's really important. I've been kind of looking at, my mom passed right about 8.5 days after Esther, my dear wife, and I've been thinking that this has to be some sort of healing for me on my inner part of myself around the divine feminine, the release of the two most important women in my life. Okay, so I've been looking at that, but I've been trying to reach now. How do I do that? I'm trying to open up to being kind and compassionate, as Esther taught me to be. So I'm sort of ruminating, and I'm looking around through things, and I was really noticing that Esther was so angelic and divine in her own right. I was thinking that my hookup with the divine really was through her, and even though we were a very spiritually oriented couple, anyone who knew us knew that was true. That I used to be more of an ecstatic, learning the Kabbalah, into the so many years ago, 28 years ago, whatever, and on into my 30s, through my 30s. Well, actually, from my early days through the 70s and on into the 80s, I was extremely ecstatic. And then when I hit Uranus opposition in around 40, I began to turn my attention to business, but I was still an ecstatic, and led most of my life that way. But then when I moved into my relationship with Esther, we were doing spirituality as a business, and while all that was well and good, we really lived on a very like, how are we creating? What are we doing? And putting business from a co-creative point of view. It was fine until Esther got diagnosed with cancer, and then there was a seriousness about it to where things really, I moved into a much more serious left brain focus, and I was just trying to get my connection with the divine feminine through Esther, and I pretty much, in the last few years, I've now realized that I've lost that I've lost the joy in my life, and I've lost that ecstatic thing, and so by just chance I got this movie called Turning Ecstatic. It's about a Sufi poet who was a spiritual master, Jalaluddin Rumi, whom you probably heard of, and a lot of it's got Coleman Barks, who is a translator, whom I actually knew back in the 70s in the English department at Georgia, and they're talking about the ecstatic connection. Rumi is, if you read him, he's a great poet that talked about connection with presence, and he could see that connection of presence in any situation, because he was just one of those people that was naturally enlightened, extremely educated, and so that kind of got my consciousness turning in a certain way. And then I noticed a thing in the news whereby the Dalai Lama was talking about, let's see, I've got a quote here, let's see if I can read it. killing people in the name of religion is unthinkable. And that's in regard to the attacks on Muslims, the attacks on Muslims in Myanmar or Burma, and the prejudice against that kind of thing. And then I was thinking, the Dalai Lama is more of an ecstatic, and he's somewhat like Rumi. He has this very innocent presence. He's a great teacher of spiritual innocence and compassion and love. But this is a statement that I find, with all due respect, a little bit naive, because killing people in the name of religion is what's been happening for so long. And so it's like, wait a minute, you need to rethink that. It's not unthinkable, because it's people think about it all the time, and then they do that. And then I noticed in the movie that at one point Coleman Barks is narrating something, and he was saying that how religion, people are killing one another in the name of religion, and now in the time of this tremendous change upon this planet, we need to shift from that. It's all about a name. It's a difference in a name. This religious struggles and differences between the sects of Muslim, of Christianity and Judaism. That it's, and so it's all vain, really, to emphasize these differences, because we're all talking about the same thing. And then I'm watching that, and he's saying that in the movie, and then I'm looking at the stuff that I'm looking at, and this struggle that I have with my disconnection from the joy of life, from the joy with the divine feminine, which actually presence is what Rumi was talking about, and how the Dalai Lama lives, and what that's all about. And so here's my personal work. I'm looking at that whole thing, and there's synchronicity right there. I'm looking at the Dalai Lama in the news, and then why did I at that moment pick this turning ecstatic? I'm trying to tell myself something. So this is my work. My beloved, my Esther, I need healing around all this by regaining my ecstatic connection. Yet here I am, faced with having to reinvent myself in doing business, even though, I'm not a young man anymore. So, but I'm still gonna laugh at myself. I'm gonna laugh at the situation. It's kind of, it's terribly ironic, and yet at the same time, it's so freeing up. This is what I'm offering you this story, because these are the type of things, if you look into your life, that you will see happening right now, where you are missing something in your life, and it's time to get it back. And it's that remembering that presence of spirit, and coming from that in your life, as that is your total focus, letting go and releasing anything else. So if you're an artist, if you're a writer, if you're thinking about doing any kind of media work or publishing or writing poems, and I've been writing, I'm going to be doing a book really soon. I've written a whole bunch of poems about Esther and my process of how I've been dealing with her loss, and sort of being forced to turn to the inner and to the divine. So these are the kind of things that I want to give to you. So this is a more personal piece than I've done before, and I want to continue to do some other pieces pretty soon. I'm hoping that you're getting something from this. Open up your heart, open up your vocal cords, open up your ability to speak and to listen, and allow yourself to hook up with your circumstances and your relationships, and take a really good look at yourself, and be willing to let it go, and to bring the divine presence of spirit as the central focus in your life, and you will be so much better for it. And for now, this is Joshua Hayward, and I will be seeing you very soon. Thanks for listening once again. Namaste, and be well.